So just how fast is the all-new V1 Gen 2? Hey, what is going on? It's Kyle here, and if you recently picked one of these new V1 Gen 2s up, you probably noticed it's extremely fast at responding to police radar. Especially if you have a radar unit or a radar gun and you've tried quick triggers or pop radar with it, it's extremely fast. Now me, myself, I have a Stalker DSR-2X, and as long as you don't have the detector too close to the antenna, it hits it every single time, even if you quick trigger it so fast that the DSR can't even read a speed yet. I recently ran a few tests with the V1 and the DSR, and I measured the response time of the V1 Gen 2 against the DSR, and I also measured the speed acquisition time of the DSR, how fast it actually gets the speed once you start the transmitter. So the V1, after getting all the test results and averaging them together across all bogeys mode, the logic mode, and the advanced logic mode, the average response time was around 135 milliseconds. After you pulled the trigger on the DSR, the V1 would go off. I didn't really notice a difference at all between the three different modes as far as response time with Ka-band, and I'm not real sure yet how K-band is. I haven't tested it. But as far as the DSR-2X, the average speed acquisition time for it from the time you turn the transmitter on until it gets a speed was about 225 milliseconds. That's 0.225 seconds, so pretty dang fast, and that was both moving and stationary mode. They're pretty much the same as far as speed acquisition time. And so I measured all these response times with a camera that I shot the video at 240 frames per second, so slow-mo speed, and I loaded it into my video editing software and used the time code, the seconds time code, to actually measure pretty precisely exactly how long it took at 240 frames per second. That's about 4 milliseconds per frame, so pretty dang close. But it really got me wondering, just how fast is the V1 Gen 2? Will it respond to like 10, 20 milliseconds? How do you even test that? Well, stick around in this video because I'm about to show you this very special device, I guess you could call it, or circuit, and basically it's going to allow me to test all the way down to 1 millisecond. So I'm going to be able to precisely control the burst speed of the radar, and I'm gonna have the V1 Gen 2 to receive it and see if it can detect it. And I'm gonna run this test across a bunch of different times and milliseconds to see if it will pick it up. And I'm also gonna run them, I'll run 10 tests for each millisecond length to see how many the V1 picked up, how many it missed, and the percentage. So with that being said, let me show you what I got. All right, so first of all, I'm gonna put this V1 over here, and I'm gonna position it down here under the table so that it doesn't have too strong a signal from the antenna. And so now you know where the V1 is. Now, where is the antenna? This is the interesting part. All right, right here is the antenna. It's a Stalker dual antenna, and as you can see, it's taken apart. So this will be a really interesting video if you're interested in things like this. So I'll show you a little bit more here in just a second. But basically, I've taken this Stalker dual antenna apart. I picked it up on eBay for like $49. It works fantastic. And so that's the device that I'm gonna use to send out the very quick pulses. So as you can see on the V1, I've got it connected to the app now. And as you can see, it's the factory default. There's nothing changed at all whatsoever. And it pretty much, as far as pop radar, quick trigger, performs the same across all the different modes. So I just prefer to leave it in the factory mode. And right here is an Arduino, and this is a little simple circuit that I built. It has a transistor to switch the power on and off to the Stalker antenna. So basically now what I'll do is I'll just show you how the whole thing works, and then I'll show you a little bit more up close of how I designed the circuitry. So now I'll come over to my computer. So as you can see, this is the Arduino code that I've coded to run on the Arduino to activate the pulses as well as the LEDs. And so if you want to do this project yourself, you can copy all this. I'll scroll all the way through so you can get a copy of it. Okay, so right here is the pop duration. I've got it set to 500 milliseconds. So I'm gonna just go ahead and load it onto the board. Now you'll notice the board's flashing. Okay, now it's loaded. So let me just show you how all this works. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push this button and these 3 LEDs up here will light sequentially. And once the green LED is on, that means that the antenna is transmitting. And as soon as the green LED turns off, it means it's done transmitting. So the LED is the exact precise time that the transmitter to this Stalker dual Ka band antenna is on. So let's go ahead and fire the first shot. So I'll just push this button, as you can see. And so that was a half a second shot. And as you can see, it picked it up no problem. And so now if I wanted to, I could do like a 400 millisecond shot and load it onto the board. And then hit the firing button and it will fire. So as you can see, we can very precisely test just how fast the V1 will actually pick up on Ka band radar. Okay, so now I'll show you a little bit more of how this setup actually works. So here is the Stalker dual antenna, and as you can see, these come apart in 2 different parts. I have screws in here, so I'm not gonna put it back on. But basically this part slides over this part and these little wafer boards. So like when you take this apart, you'll first have to slide this back part off. It's got a screw in the middle. That's the only screw you have to take out. And usually it's pretty tight, so you'll need a good screwdriver. And then once you slide this part off, you have to be careful because these wires will be hooked up and they have a little clip, so you just have to unclip them. And then basically with this, it's 2 wafers and they're like just kind of stuck together with this pin configuration on the side, but you can just leave those together. And then there will be 3 screws in here, and you'll take those out and this will basically pop off and you can lift it like this. And then right here, it took me a while to figure it out, but the gun diode is quite a bit different than I thought. This is the circuitry on top of the gun diode. These little lever things right here are actually resting on the gun diode, and these right here are the power wires. There's the positive, and then the black one right here is the negative, and they all go right into here. And so if you take this chip off, you will reveal the gun diode cavity, and you'll see the little gun diode on the bottom side of this. And so the tuning screw that they use to calibrate these is right here in the middle. It's like a little Allen wrench. It's a tiny Allen wrench. Basically, if you turn it one way, it'll increase the frequency, and if you turn it the other way, it'll decrease the frequency, and it changes quite dramatically when you do it, so you have to be real careful. But I messed around with it just to make sure that's what it was, and sure enough it was. And then inside of here you have like a cone that's made out of aluminum, and that's the resonant cavity. So that's how those work. I'm just basically powering the gun diode, which will give me the same frequency as actually running my DSR2X. So the parameters I've set for this test, I started at 0.5 seconds, which is 500 milliseconds, and I go down as far as possible until the Valentine just stops hitting totally. And then each time burst, it gets 10 tries. They're around 5 seconds apart, just in case the detector needs to park, so that we get a fair shot. And also, I keep it random. It's not exactly 5 seconds. Sometimes it might be like 2 seconds or 10, 15, 5. So I keep it in that format. And then for each millisecond slot, after I'm done with that first one, like right here, I basically turn the detector off, let it sit for a few seconds, and then turn it back on just to make sure that it's, clear for that run. And so you can see, I've already done the test because otherwise it'd be a really long video. And so here's the first few results, and you can see in the format I've got it is either yes or no, it didn't hit. And then there's 10 sequential tries, and then I give a percentage of how many, out of 10 that it hit and how many didn't. All right, so let's actually get started and start doing these timed bursts of radar and see if this Valentine, see how fast it can actually detect. And this will be a really interesting experiment. I know I really enjoy doing this. It's very, very fun. And I don't think anyone else has done this. So subscribe for more stuff like this. But let's go ahead and start that test. All right, so first up is the 500 millisecond run. So I'm gonna change this pop duration to 500. That's gonna give us 500 milliseconds. And then I'm gonna load it onto the Arduino. Okay, now it's loaded onto the Arduino. Now all I'm gonna do is push the button. Now you can watch either over here for the green light. The green light's only gonna be on exactly when it's transmitting, so to get a really good idea of how fast it's transmitting. And then right here, you will see the display of the V1, and then obviously the V1's back there under the table. So let's go ahead and do the first test, 500 milliseconds, here we go. As you can see, no problem. We'll let it park. Okay, try it again. And so that right there is going to be the duration that the Stalker DSR-2X fast lock remote's going to do. You know, if you hold it, it turns on and off in 500 milliseconds. You know, crappy radar detectors can't detect it, but as you can see, the V1 has no problem. Alright, so now let's cut that in half and go to 250 milliseconds. So I'll change that to 250, and then I'll load it onto the board. And we are ready to go. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, and boom, no problem. Wait for a second, and let it clear for a few seconds. And then we'll hit it again. No problem whatsoever. Okay, so in the test, the actual test, which I'll show all the results at the end of this video. Basically from here, I went down 50 milliseconds until I got to 100 milliseconds. And then I went down, 10 milliseconds until I got to 65. The reason I started doing 5 there is because the mile per hour pop radar is supposedly 65 milliseconds. I don't know if I believe that, because the videos I've seen of that, the LEDs that turn on and off when it's doing pop mode, it looks more like 150, 200 milliseconds. But nonetheless, from 65 and down, I just went down 5 milliseconds until I got all the way down to 5, and then I went to 1 millisecond. So let's go down to 150 and hit it and see what happens. So I'll load that onto the board and we'll hit it. Tell me what you think. Give me a prediction of how fast you think it'll be without skipping to the end in the comments. I'm curious what you all think. So here we go, 150 seconds or 0.15 seconds. As you can see, there's no problem whatsoever. We'll hit it again. So as you can see, you can get a very, very good idea, very precise idea of just how good different detectors are compared to each other. So this is an awesome bench test to do, and I'm actually test this out on the road, today, later today sometime, and I'll upload that video. But anyways, let's go down to 100 milliseconds and see what happens. So load that on the board. All right, here's 100. Then we'll wait for about 5 seconds and hit it again. So absolutely no problem there whatsoever. 100 milliseconds, that's a little over twice as fast as the DSR can actually acquire speed. So that's twice as fast as pretty much any quick trigger out there. Now let's continue down. Let me go down to, let's just do 65. And that's gonna be the mile per hour B, length of time supposedly. So I'll put 65 in there and upload that to the board. So now we're gonna be shooting a 65 millisecond burst of radar exactly. So here we go. As you can see, there's absolutely no problem. Now, one thing I've noticed with these tests, if your V1 has not been running very long and it's not warm yet, if you've noticed, if you run your V1 for a while, it'll get nice and warm. It doesn't really get hot. But I've noticed, the warmer the V1 gets, it seems like, the lower of milliseconds it'll react to. So that's one thing to keep in mind, I guess. I don't really confirm that. But anyways, 65, we'll try that one more time. And as you can see, no problem whatsoever. All right, so now the fun part. Now we're gonna go down to 50 and see if it still reacts to 50 milliseconds. So we're gonna upload that one. All right, here we go. Boom, it got 50 milliseconds, so pretty impressive. All right, now let's try 40. Load that up. All right, so here's 40 milliseconds. We're starting to get pretty damn fast, so here we go. Boom. No problem yet. Okay, now I'm gonna go down to 35. See if we still get a hit. Upload that one, and it's ready, so here we go. Boom, it still got it. That's 35 milliseconds. That's 0.035 seconds. So very, very fast. All right, now let's try 30 milliseconds. This is starting to get extremely fast. So I'll upload that to the board. All right, here we go. Wow, it still gets it. That's pretty impressive. So be honest, like, you don't even need anywhere close to it being that fast, because there's no radar gun that is that fast that I'm aware of. All right, so now we're gonna try 25. We're getting pretty low, and this is pretty impressive so far. So, all right, so 25, upload that to the board. All right, here we go. Dang, it still got it. That's very impressive. Okay, so now we'll just keep going down until it doesn't hit anymore. And so we'll do 20 next. Upload that one. I don't know if that's you, but this is a really interesting test. And it's so cool to be able to do this. All right, so 20 milliseconds. Here we go. Yeah, it missed, darn. All right, we'll try it again. It missed that one. Try it again. Missed that one. And again. And again. Oh, it got it. 20 milliseconds. That's very impressive. Try it one more time. Nope. Let me lower it to 15, see if we can get a hit on that. Upload that. Now, supposedly, the V1, after listening to the interview that Vortex Radar did with Mike Valentine, the V1 does its round. It does a full sweep front and back in 4 milliseconds. So I was thinking, it might get, down to 4 milliseconds. However, so here's 15. We'll see if it gets it. Okay, so as you can see, around 20, 15, it starts missing them. And I'm guessing maybe that has something to do with the processing time. So either that or it's just, too fast. I'm not real sure what's going on there. It could also be the antenna. I'm not sure if that antenna, I don't know if it is going to react at 10 milliseconds. It may not. So it may not be the V1, it may be the antenna itself, because it's certainly not designed to send out pulses that quick, I don't think. Okay, so spoiler alert, I think 15 is as low as I could ever get it to hit. So let me go ahead and actually show you the test results that I did earlier. So I'll just maximize this. And here's all of the results. So, some of these were a little bit odd that I found, but, I recycled the Valentine after each one of these tests, like right here where it's highlighted. And then when I went to the next one, I would shut the Valentine off for about 5 seconds, turn it back on, and then try that next millisecond burst. So as you can see, 100% hit all the way down to 100 milliseconds. So 100 milliseconds and up, like, you're golden. And I don't know if there's even a radar gun that gets a speed that fast, but that's over twice as fast as the DSR. Now there's 90 milliseconds. This one was a little bit weird. So as you can see, it missed 6 of them out of 10. It got 4 out of 10, so 40%. And then when I went down to 80, it did 70%. So for some reason, this particular length of time and this one was kind of like an anomaly. And I'm guessing maybe it's like a time harmonic with the oscillator in the Valentine. Maybe at those particular speeds, it's hard for the Valentine to pick it up. And then as you can see, when we dip down into 70, it goes back up to 100%. And then all the way down to 40 milliseconds, it got 100% of the hits out of 10. And then once we got to 35, it got 90, and then 25, it got 30%. And then we dropped down to 20, got 10. Now, this 15 millisecond, which is the one I think we ended on, when I did the 10 test, it didn't hit any of them, but I was like, well, I wonder how many it would take to to actually hit one with 15 milliseconds, you know, just out of curiosity, since this is the last one to hit right here. So I hit it 100 times, and on the 44th pulse, you know, out of 100 tries, it hit once. So it's literally, you know, for 15 milliseconds, it's literally a 1 in 100 chance or something around there. And then, you know, I went all the way down to 1 millisecond, and those were all zeros. So as you can see with the new V1 Gen 2, super impressive results. That was like way better than I thought. I thought it was going to end at like, you know, 150 or 100 or something like that. So in reality, you can get down to around 30 milliseconds and still pick up on 90% of the hits, which is super impressive. I really don't think there's a radar gun that can get a speed at 30 milliseconds. That is super fast. So I mean, this guy right here is definitely fast enough for pretty much anything. So with the V1 Gen 2, don't worry about, you know, is it gonna pick up if someone does like pop radar or instant on or whatever. It's definitely gonna do that. It does its job very well. So I can't wait to test other radar guns now that I figured out this method to actually test these very short pulses very precisely. So I'll probably get some other antennas, like some decoder antennas, you know, custom, etc., and maybe get like a K-band antenna and do the same test, and maybe get some other detectors, test them as well. It'll be really interesting. If you have any suggestions on what I should do, shoot them down below in the comments. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. It'll help me out a lot. And go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to see more stuff like this in the future. But I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.